I support this amendment. One thing that we kept hearing in committee was this was about names like nicknames and all that. But let's be very clear. Chosen name by this bill, by previous law, oh no, this is all caps. Chosen name means a name that an individual requests to be known as to reflect an individual's gender identity or gender expression. So the chosen name here, and let's just get rid of all these trope things about trying to erase anybody. Nobody's trying to erase anybody. What we're trying to do is we're trying to protect parental rights. We're trying to protect children from being sent down a road that Debiopath itself recognizes is at least 30% regret, which puts it in the category of extremely extreme risk of failure. So there's nothing about trying to erase anybody. There's just trying to protect. And these chosen names that go along with a chosen gender identity, which might be one of 90, we don't know, or 256, we don't know. But these are often rooted, as we heard from the witnesses, that they are rooted in childhood sexual trauma. So a reason for a child to ask for a different name, one of the reasons one of the females said they wanted a different name is because they made the determination that it was not safe to be a female. That it was not safe to be female because of the loss of female spaces, because of the prevalence of porn that is in schools due to HB 25-2063 and 24-216. So there is a really, really good reason why parents should know if a child wants to change their name. The child doesn't want to change their name necessarily just because somebody wants to erase them. Nobody wants to erase them. The people that were there, yes, I agree, beautiful people, endowed with certain unalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, created in the image of God. 100% on board with that. We're not talking about that. This bill is talking about removing children from the custody of their parents for not
Representative
wanting...
DeGraaf?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate your comments. Just want to make sure you're talking to Amendment L002.
Yes, sir. Because what we're talking about is children choosing a name different than their chosen one. And then we're not talking about nicknames. We're not talking about Charles going to Charlie, going to Chuck by year's end. What we're talking about is something entirely different. And the witness testimony over and over and over again was that those changes were often, I won't say always because I can't speak for everybody, were often rooted in childhood sexual trauma. And it's hardly a fair thing to take a child and say, hey, since you're confused, as one teacher said that they're taught to teach the kids that maybe they were born in the wrong body. And this would be on the separate day of teaching them that they could plant a jelly bean and get a lollipop the next day. That they can wish on it, then they can go and they can wish on a star and a gender fairy will make them a real boy. We're talking about something that is deeply psychological, and the parents should know about it. That's all. You want the parents to know about it. You want the parents to be involved. You want the parents to be an ally in the best interest of the kids. And everything about this bill is cutting parents out over and over again. Not only cutting them out, but cutting them out of custody of their own kids. This is not about erasing trans people. This is a problem with this bill is that it dealt with so many different subjects. Dead naming, using the name of the individual as with which the parents named their child when they were born, which we're told has nothing to do with gender, but all of a sudden then gender has to have a different name. And then when a parent questions that, and they might have a question about it because maybe there was some sort of sexual trauma that needs to be worked through. But if you send them to a therapist, that therapist is required by law to go into affirmation only. This is not a bill about supporting parental rights. This is not a bill about making Colorado safe for kids. This is anything but making Colorado safe for kids. We're not trying to erase kids. We're trying to make sure that if they need help, they get the help that they need, not a cry for help
DeGraaf?
and then send them down the path.
Representative DeGraaf, please make sure you're talking to the amendment.
Yes, sir, I'm talking to the amendment because we're talking about the name that a child is wanting to use. The child wants to use a new name. We're not talking about Chuck to Charlie to Charles. What we're talking about is a name that is specifically, I'm not sure how this aligns with decorum, but that's okay.
1 second.
Yeah.
Representative Garcia, can you please take your seat there?
I feel
Thank you.
intimidated.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually have every right to stand up here.
Okay, fine. Chosen name means an individual request to be known to reflect an individual's gender identity or gender expression. It's a very different thing. It's a very different thing. And to pretend that we should be ignoring a child that potentially, won't say necessarily that they are, but potentially is in crisis, is not necessarily in the best interest of the child. But this bill says the only thing that's in the best interest of that child is to take them farther down the path. Because we know that if a child gender identifies socially, they will most likely go towards chemically, and if they go towards chemically, they will go towards as surgically. And what's being erased is the 50,000 people on a Reddit thread, apparently, that are detransers, that are very, so I'm not judging anybody. I would just like to see that people don't go through the pain that other people have. And if you give the only option for a child to change his name and then continue down that path, if that's the only option that's available to the state, that is child abuse. We've taken away the ability of a therapist, an expert, to weigh in and say, maybe you need to reconsider. Maybe you need to consider that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, that you were knit together for a purpose in your mother's womb and not born in the wrong body. But this bill only allows a kid that's questioning to come to the conclusion that they're born in the wrong body.
Thank you for your comments. Members, 2 hours has elapsed, and the time for the debate on Amendment L002 has ended. The question before us is the passage of Amendment L002. All those in favor?